The Deity DLTX seems like the dream microphone transmitter, offering all the benefits professional brands like Zaxcom, Wizzycom, and Sound Devices offer, but at prosumer-friendly prices. It has features like 32-bit float recording, an analog limiter, 48-volt phantom power, wireless timecode, but is there just too much tech in one device? Alright, so a quick disclaimer, I did not get sent these devices for review. I bought these for myself because I thought they would be really great for my workflow. So I picked up these transmitters for a couple reasons. They could transmit and record with timecode embedded in the files as long as you were outside of the US and use the devices within the Deity ecosystem. They also have a LEMO connector, which is a common termination for professional lavalier mics, and also gives you the ability to output 48-volt phantom power. So my previous setup was the Tentacle Track E's, but they did not work with my favorite lavalier microphones, the DPA 4060 series. Since I'm generally managing audio solo with most of my projects, having the ability to control gain on my recording devices via an app or just kind of set and forget it by using a limiter or the option of 32-bit float is quite an attractive set of contingency options for when recording, especially when you're dealing with talent that can be a bit dynamic. Best of all, the price is pretty decent. Now, this isn't as cheap as a lot of the more consumer microphone setups like the DJI mics, but it isn't in the insane realm of professional transmitters from brands like Zaxcom or Electrosonics or Sound Devices. And even better, it comes with a 64GB micro SD card and even some batteries in the package. You do somewhat get what you pay for when it comes to build quality. It's a solid aluminum unibody build, but with a finish that will definitely get scuffed up pretty easily, and you definitely know that you're gonna get a dent as soon as you drop it. So power is AA batteries with lithium getting the best run times for about 8 to 10 hours, especially if you use the Deity ones, but those aren't rechargeable. And you can even power it through USB-C. Since it can support a wide spectrum of frequencies for a UHF transmission, you'll need to cut your own whip based on the block that you're planning to use, which is based on what country you'll be in. And the app is pretty helpful in that once you set your country, it'll tell you what block or what frequencies you should fall under. Now, it does support phantom power, and Deity even has accessories that make it easy to mount this pack to a boom pole, and you can even buy official LEMO to XLR cables. However, this cable that I bought was a dud. It does not transmit the phantom power. I actually had to use a different LEMO cable to actually get the phantom power output to work. However, this only worked with my super cardioid microphone and not my shotgun microphone. It seems like the power distribution is a little bit unstable. It's pretty disappointing because I had planned to use this for my interview setups to make things a lot more portable, so I wouldn't have to get a whole dedicated audio recorder and run cabling to that. I guess I would have to wait for the DLTX maybe. Ideally, Deity will release a firmware update to fix this, or it could be that I just got a faulty unit. My hope for support is sadly a little bit low because this device won't be released in basically the biggest market, the US, which means that I don't think there will be a very long-term amount of support for this product. At the base level, this transmitter does what I need, which is basically be able to record solid quality audio from my preferred lavalier microphones with timecode to make things easier in post. But actually getting this basic functionality was quite painful. So Deity has been pretty straightforward in their marketing that these devices and this whole ecosystem is meant to be controlled by the Sidus Audio app, but it seems like maybe there was a miscommunication or something went wrong along the way. So Deity has this BitConnectify protocol, which is basically their own spin on the Bluetooth protocol, but I think it maybe hasn't matured enough, or maybe there's a discrepancy between BitConnectify 1 and BitConnectify 2. So on a base level, you're supposed to be able to use the app to get the receiver to talk to the transmitters and for them to scan the frequency range to find the right frequency and set it for all three devices. So this automated process would generally work with one transmitter. I would get one transmitter and the receiver to take that one channel from that transmitter and they would set. But when it came to the second transmitter and the second frequency on the receiver, these things wouldn't communicate and they wouldn't be set. So I'd have to actually manually set these because a lot of times the wizard would just get stuck or quit in the middle of the process. So it's not a super huge deal breaker for me because I only need this set up if I want to monitor my devices. What's really critical is that I'm easily able to start recordings on these devices. So that should be simple, right? Well, when I want to start recording on both my devices, this spotty Bluetooth connection becomes a real chore because it takes multiple attempts to get a recording to start and stop. You constantly get these things that says change state failed, and sometimes it just works when it says it fails. You really got to check the LEDs on the devices to see if it's recording or not. And this is going to hurt you in post because all this starting and stopping of recordings creates all these unnecessary files, which you then have to sort through in post. Thankfully, at least the baseline functionality, which is syncing timecode across devices, is pretty painless in the app, and it also gives you lots of different ways of jam syncing timecode on the transmitter. So even if you're not in the Deity ecosystem, as long as you have a LEMO connector for your timecode box to input into these devices, you can jam sync it. But if we want to be positive and hopefully this Bluetooth connectivity bugs and issues is worked out in a firmware update, the app itself has a bit of a learning curve as the menu system is a bit dense and unintuitive, with important options being hidden in weird places. And this is even compounded by the fact that the device itself has important features that you can only access on the device and not in the app. Like, you can only enable 32-bit float recording and the limiter in the device, but not in the app. The app lets you set what battery type you're using though, and even the limiter, it seems like you can't really disable it. Another thing I really don't like is that because there's a lot of options that are only available on the device, you need to access the menu in the device, and you need to open the battery tray to get to the controls. And the battery tray is super sensitive. So if you open it, the batteries almost immediately pop out, which means the device turns off, which ruins your whole timecode sync when you need to put it back on. It's really quite frustrating. So you need to make sure that you have your settings on point before you start recording. Probably the most frustrating, I think this has been universal through all the Citus apps, is especially when time is money, the app constantly logs itself out and you need to be logged in to adjust settings on your Deity devices. Like if you're logged out in the Citus audio app and you try and go in without logging back in again, you won't have any of your devices available. You got to log back in. And you need to stick logged in into one device with the app, because if you log into another device, you get kicked out on the previous device. So I pretty much dedicated like, okay, my lighting's only on my phone and my audio is only on the iPad. So within the Citus audio app, it has this different section called Workstation, which is probably meant to control all these audio devices. The really frustrating part is that it has these different tabs, but the status of the device is not consistent across these tabs. Like it has this one called Workstation, which is basically meant to kind of set up all your wireless audio syncing, and you can see levels and you can start and stop recording here. But then there's a recording section, which is the only place where you can find this like start recording on everything button. But the status of the recording in the Workstation will not be the same on the recording section. Like you can be recording on Workstation, but it won't show that you're recording on recording. So why is that there? Why not just put the record all button in the Workstation area? And then there's a timecode section, which I guess is cool, but like also why not just put all of this in one menu and not have these like inconsistent menus? It's pretty frustrating and it can get really confusing on the user end if you're not sure what to do. So I found with the Deity devices that the Bluetooth range on the timecode boxes is decent, not as good as the Tentacle devices, but on these transmitters, it's really poor. Like, you basically need to have everything extremely close to each other or it won't be able to pick it all up in the app and sync them all together. Like I can have Tentacle syncs across the room and still be able to sync them, but with these, you need to put them all together in a group first, sync them, then spread them across your different cameras, especially if you're working on a bigger set. If you are recording with these devices and time is important, be sure to invest in a micro SD card reader. You can connect the transmitter directly to your computer via USB-C, but unlike the super user-friendly Track E devices, you need to make sure to turn on this device, and then you need to go through the menu only on the device to enable the mounting of the card on the PC. It doesn't automatically mount. So you got to go through that each time just to be able to transfer files. And I would say the transfer speeds using this method are the slowest possible. It's much quicker to just take out the card and put it in the reader and transfer files that way. But like I said, once you get all these pain points, is the audio good? I don't know, let me know. Throughout this video, I've been recording this using the 48-volt phantom power with a super cardioid mic, and also with a lavalier mic. I used a pretty common lavalier mic, which is the Senken Coast 11D, and the super cardioid mic is the Sheps CMC 641. So would I recommend that someone pick these up? Well, if you're in the US, definitely not. I mean, these will work in the US, but you will only be able to transmit or record. You can't transmit and record at the same time. That only happens if you're outside the United States. And I don't think you can VPN transmitters. You should probably save your money and get something like the PR2 instead, or the Tentacle Track E, which are much more user-friendly devices. If you're outside the US and you kind of want to level up your kit, but you don't have the budget quite yet to go into like the ZaxCom, WizzyCom realm, this might be a good bet for you, but just know that they just don't work as well as what the professional packs do. The ZaxCom one, which I thought was very daunting to use at first, is much more user-friendly than these devices have been. I guess because there's not that whole like middle app or middleman app in the way of basically blocking or limiting some of the functionality. Let me know what you think of the audio, and if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments.